Log of the Demeter, 20th July. 4 days in hell, knocking about in a sort of maelstrom, and the wind a tempest. No sleep for anyone. Men all worn out. Hardly know how to set a watch, since no one fit to go on. Second mate volunteered to steer and watch, and let men snatch a few hours' sleep. Wind abating, sea still terrific, but feel them less as ship is steadier.
It's time for Dracula Weekly. It's time for Dracula Weekly. And welcome back to Dracula Weekly. I'm your host, Jasmine Garcia, and joining me today is
Shamila Karanakan, and at this point, the crew of the Demeter needs to yeet that vamp into the sea.
And my name is Callie. Don't worry, I've got Dracula under control. Wrong Dracula, but I do have him under control.
I guess the trip to hell was successful then?
Yeah.
Very.
Oh, good. I'm good. I'm glad that your blurbo from the fanfiction podcast is safe.
Hey, listen, Dracula hasn't made it through the story yet. We're doing great.
That is true. And Callie, you missed the reference, actually. If we're yeeting Dracula into the sea...
The crew of the Demeter, they're throwing Dracula into the sea. You know another vamp that's going under the sea.
Ah! I was focused on my other blorbo.
Blorbo overload.
Blorbo overload.
Care to explain, Callie?
Which Demeter or Veil? There's too many blorbos.
I mean, we've kind of talked about Veil. Let's talk about Demeter in terms of the under the sea vampire thing.
Gets sent to the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico for doing absolutely nothing wrong.
I mean, he did rip a werewolf's heart out.
How many have other people done? It's fine.
Oh, I agree. The Michelsons have no business being judge, jury, and executioner in anything.
Okay, so no, we don't count that. It's fine.
With that said, how do we feel about that as a plan for dealing with Dracula?
Let's fucking go!
Yep, right. I'm operating under One Piece rules, where he sinks because he's like a devil fruit eater.
Ooh, I like that.
Interesting.
That means we don't have to put him in a shipping container either.
Ooh. Although it couldn't hurt.
No, it couldn't. I'll go grab the Saratura.
As our listeners probably know, we are still working on how to break the time loop. We are actually making some progress here because the crew of the Demeter is not having a great time right now. They are reaching the end of their horror movie.
We're all gonna be safe, and we're all gonna have a great time. What in the Jesus Christ was that?
And the worst thing is, the captain is under the impression by the end that it was all his first mate the whole time.
Nope.
Ruh-roh.
Oh no. The
Callie,
first
I'm sure
mate, he's the most genre savvy of the men of it all, and he's seen as a madman. That's why he yeets himself into the sea.
I don't blame him.
I mean, that's just it, isn't it? Isn't it always the person who tries to warn them that gets the short end of the stick?
He even goes
Wouldn't
for the
know
barrels
anything
himself.
about that. Sorry, go ahead, Shami.
No, but like he's the one who was actually going for the barrels. Like just a couple of episodes, I was saying they should have looked in the barrels, but we have the first mate doing that all on his own. So good for him.
Yeah,
I wouldn't know anything about that, Jazz. Nope, I don't have any blorbos who tried that.
Yeah. Forbidden knowledge and all that.
Forbidden knowledge. Around here, it's just another word for treasure. No, it's not Tom Cruise. No, it's not.
Fucking idiot. Anyway.
No, but like Dracula definitely uses isolation as part of his tactics. Like, you know, isolation with being a new person in a foreign country. Isolation when you're out on the sea and no one else is around you. And then isolation in the countryside where you only have your girlfriend and craggy old sailors with accents.
And how? But yeah, and you know, Dracula's a predator, so that just makes perfect sense.
And it really works. Like, it works in the 1800s, but I think it works even better now because we live in a world nowadays that is so interconnected and so tied together that the idea of living in an area where I can't call for help is so strange and unfamiliar.
Like this was the premise of 30 Days of Night, because this takes place in the Arctic Circle, like in like very barren Straits of Alaska, and that's actually a vampire story too.
Yep, it is. They're very Nosferatu inspired, clearly. Like, these are pure monster vamps.
We love
Only
us some
the
monster
strongest
vamps.
of the monster fuckers are going to want to fuck these.
So
I
is
mean-
there in or out on this then?
Yep, yeah. But yeah, exactly. Like, that level of isolation, that is the secret sauce of any horror movie, especially ones involving monsters that are hunting you down.
Especially with picking off the crew members one by one, it gives me very and then they were none vibes.
For sure. Dracula could have probably just taken them all out and taken over the whole thing, but then he wouldn't have
But
snacks
he's playing
along
with
the
his
way.
food pretty much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's and it's also just like they're doing the work for him. They are getting him to London. He doesn't have to do anything. Work smarter, not harder.
Couldn't agree more. And it works. Unfortunately, everybody's gone, including the one person who knew something was up. Again, I will be really interested to see how, when I do finally watch it, how Last Voyage of the Demeter handles that.
Yeah, that is interesting. I'm curious.
Because especially in the original, there are absolutely no survivors, which it made me wonder, like, if there would be like a sequel hook where Dracula did hunt down that last final survivor.
That would have been really cool. And like the final survivors going after him. Maybe he joins up with the gang. I think Ellie and I talked about that. And it really is a shame that movie didn't do well.
Man,
It's a good premise for a horror story, especially
a very good one.
Obscure the fact that it is in fact the Dracula movie. I feel like if that had been a twist, that could have been something.
Yeah.
I actually read a Tumblr post recently about how cruise ships would make an excellent horror movie setting.
Oh yeah, like I've seen like a few things where they do like the slasher ones, but they're mostly like schlocky B horror ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, middle of the ocean is the perfect place to commit a crime.
And also, they have their own morgue on board. What?
What they do?
According to that post,
Oh
because people die on ships.
Oh, so that's why there's like technically boat detectives.
Yeah, and you can leave a hospital. Good luck escaping a killer or a monster or a curse in the middle of the ocean.
Especially when there's no lifeboats aboard because everyone else has stolen them.
I took all the lifeboats and bit lots of tiny holes in them. That kills people.
Oh god, like if Dracula was on the Titanic, it'd be even more chaotic.
I was thinking of llamas, but that's true too. That was a llamas with hats bit.
So yeah, while the slasher movie is reaching its ending, Lucy and Mina are still on their little cottagecore graveyard vacation.
And it's so cute.
Taking a page out of Mary Shelley book, because what spooky cottagecore life is complete without a graveyard bash?
No, absolutely.
Correct.
Or graveyard smash, maybe.
Nah. Boo. Boo this woman. Boo.
Calliope Castle, you referenced the Monster Mash like every episode you were on last October.
Yes, and that's why I boo you.
No, you don't get to... Glass houses, Callie. Glass houses.
Exactly. I don't claim to have glass walls. I broke them all. So I throw rocks at you.
Okay, damn.
And then we have Lucy sitting pretty on her gravestone and not wanting to leave, while the craggy old sailor, whose accent is absolutely incomprehensible. This is why you do not phonetically write out accents.
Yep, that is exactly what somebody in the book said. This was at Grace Pearson. Bram Stoker's why writers are advised not to write accents phonetically, Joanne.
Turfling.
Yes.
You know what you did.
Yeah.
Black mold, though. I can't believe about the black mold in her castle.
Yeah, you heard about that? We were literally talking about that at the Percy Jackson recording. Like,
black mold, bitch.
Incredibly
bitch.
awful.
You have money.
What are you doing?
What is happening?
we live in a crazy world. But yeah, no, like, I tried to, like, read out this man's accent to try to make it more comprehensible, and it didn't really work. But eventually, like, I felt like I was the other princesses in that one scene from Wreck-It Ralph 2.
And best of luck finding your song.
Ach, lang me your lumry give me a moose nearly you're gonna away a teardrop in his eye. Hey, she back, wee lassie?
Uh-huh. What did she just say?
We don't know.
We can't understand her. She's from the other studio.
The over-the-top Scottish accent.
That they gave Merida, yeah. Like, I'm pretty sure it wasn't even that crazy in the Brave movie itself. But basically, this old crusty old sea captain's point is people will soften up or even just out and out lie about people after they die in the name of quote unquote respecting their memories, I guess. Would you say that's an accurate interpretation of why this is here?
That's the gist of it.
Yep.
That's the gist of it when I wasn't being
reading it
distracted
again.
by
Hang
the
on.
phonetics.
Let's see. They and all grims and signs and warnings be all invented by parsons and ilsome buke bodies and railway touters to skeer and scunners halflins and to get folks to do something that they don't other inclined to. It makes me artful to think of 'em. Why, it's them that not content with printing lies on paper and preaching them at the pulpits, does want to be cutting them on the tombstones.
It's
Look here,
basically
all of-
it's basically a long-winded say of not speaking ill of the dead.
Yeah, pretty much. And he does not.
I read that fairly well. That's a little concerning.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
not bad, Callie, considering my struggles with it. And like, yeah, it's like he's trying to say, you know, people are so obsessed with not speaking ill of the dead that they don't realize they're fucking they don't want to acknowledge that they're fucking lying about them, basically. Like, there was that one story of the guy who would rather shoot himself than let his mother get the insurance money. But they make it out, it's like, oh, he fell off the cliff. And his mother misses him so much.
It's almost like a form of whitewashing. It's like all the ugly details are sort of like covered up in light paint. Like, no, we can't really speak ill of the dead, but you're missing out a lot on what they were like in life itself.
Exactly.
So it's like prettying up the details.
Because it's more comfortable that way, and it's, as he basically puts it, it's not going to save you when Judgment Day comes. The pretty lies aren't going to do jack shit for you. And I'll admit, it was around that time I was like, oh, so this is why this is here. This is here to foreshadow how, you know, they're going to tell themselves stories about how about what happens to different people in this novel. But until they get to the truth that no, there be vampires, they're not going to succeed. It's not going to save them. Your ignorance will not save you.
That could be another reason why the time loop is happening.
I'm listening.
No, like, if you're putting up the details, you're not letting the whole story be brought out, and when you hide all those details, it will repeat itself over and over again until the truth will out.
Interesting. Okay. Making a note of that.
We did have that one letter to Mina and Jonathan out to the multiverse, so I don't know. We'll put it in the form of that.
Yep, you're right. And yeah, no, like, Lucy is, you know, sitting pretty at the graveyard, but it's also just like, oh, this is just an awful thing to say. Meanwhile, it's clear that there are already signs of Dracula's influence on her.
She's, like, staring at Mina at the end of it. It kind of reminds me of that psychic link between Mina and Dracula, like, later on in the book. And it makes me realize that Dracula doesn't even have to be in the same country in order to influence Lucy.
No.
And that's probably what the most frightening thing of all.
And that's horrifying.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, especially OG Dracula is ridiculously overpowered, and that's what makes him so threatening. It would not fly nowadays, but it works here, I feel like. It's just creeping dread, especially when, again, Western audiences weren't really used to vampire stories at this time. Nowadays, we are.
I feel like Western audiences are more familiar with the Eastern European kind of vampires, but they're not, like, familiar with, like, vampires from, like, Asian, like with East Asians, Southeast Asian, South Asian vampires as well.
Mhm.
Or from vampire stories from Oceania and all those like quote unquote foreign lands.
Oh, could you explain a little bit more about that? Because I know a little bit, but since you brought
We did
it up-
discuss like the idea of the Hindu vampire in like Drop of Venom.
True,
Like those
yeah.
kind of concepts, those sorts of vampire stories, they're not familiar to Western audiences either. Not with the way that we're familiar with Eastern European vampires.
That is true. Like
Because
nowadays,
different abilities, different looks, and you wouldn't immediately peg a Hindu vampire the same way you would peg an Eastern European vampire.
no, absolutely not. Like nowadays, yeah, vampire from a non-Western country would probably be the best way to kind of replicate this feeling that I'm sure Victorian audiences had when this novel first came out, where it's just like, oh, this is so strange and unfamiliar and terrifying.
And it adds onto the layers of xenophobia.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Because at the end of the day, a lot of, especially older vampire stories, are about being
The fear of
afraid
the
of
other.
foreigners taking your women, which is a bit of a yikes, yeah. Maybe that's why the 30s mummy took so much from Dracula, because
Yeah.
the idea of the mummy is
Orientalism
also
of it all,
that.
but set in Egypt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's you're right, Jazz. The third, yeah.
Like, I'm not the first person to say that the 30s mummy basically just took a leaf out of the 30s Dracula book. But yeah, like, you're right. Like, using more obscure vampire legends would probably be the best way to replicate that in a current story. So I would like to see somebody do that if they're so inclined.
Mm-hmm.
And Mina is still suspicious about the fact she's not heard from Jonathan, and how even the last time she has heard from him didn't sound like him.
She
Poor
is going to
thing.
be digging soon.
Oh, most certainly. Like, she's my girl is clever. She knows that something is up, even if she doesn't know what.
This is why she's the final girl.
Yep, she is the OG vampire slayer that Buffy wishes she was.
And we stand.
We do.
Remind Ire to send out a letter out to the multiverse. You might not officially get it, but somewhere, hopefully, it disperses.
Yeah, absolutely. You got that, buddy? You got that, buddy? Think you can help us out there?
Already on it.
Awesome. All right. In that case, Callie, got any predictions?
Do we remember my predictions from last week? Anybody? Bueller.
Stuff about Jonathan and not having a good time with the bride. Stuff about
Van Helsing showing up.
Yep.
Not yet, but soon. I can feel it in my bones.
Mm-hmm.
I feel it. I know it's coming. Or maybe I'm just still on an emotional wreck, savage journey here. I don't know.
Okay, and then prediction is what's going to be happening to Mina and Lucy later on.
I really need to write these down. I don't know. I don't have any predictions this week. I don't know. I think it's kind of just going to be more of the same. I think we're building, but nothing that we've
You also did predict Dracula having his big get off the boat moment.
I mean,
yes,
that
I think
hasn't
that'll
quite
come next week.
yet.
So I think that'll come next week, and I think that's when we'll also kind of get more Jonathan stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
Because Jonathan's been MIA so far.
Yep.
Yes, and it's doing me a heckin' concern.
You're concerned about your other Blorbo here.
I had too many Blorbos.
Yeah, you've got too many.
I can't keep track of them all.
You've got too many broken white men.
I really, really do. It's a real problem. Someone save me. That's no.
More horror stories should take place on cruise ships. Let's end with that.
Yes. Let's get all the cruise ship horror stories here, people.
Honestly, bitchin'.
They have a morgue on board, Jazz.
They do indeed.
And
You're
they
practically
have boat
asking for it.
detectives. Actual boat detectives. I thought that was made up.
And how are you supposed to escape a curse if there's no...
You got me there. You got me there.
In the middle of the ocean, you can't escape. You're doomed.
Yeah, because especially since they always cover up if people die on it.
The cruise ship, you're wrapped up in carpet and thrown overboard. That's what happens.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, who's got stuff to plug?
Find me on the online news on Tumblr where I post social skills and graphics. I am also working on something for next week. I cannot give away the details, but if you follow Glint, Glimmer, Gleam on Tumblr, then you have an inkling of what it is.
Ooh.
I'm Callie, and I'm the host of Postcards from Mystic Falls, a podcast where residents of Mystic Falls drag newcomers into the Vampire Diaries coven. We'll be starting with the Vampire Diaries and continuing with each of the 2 spin-offs. You can find Postcards on social media at Mystic Falls Pod in the link below, and you can find me on social media everywhere at Callie Castle 10. And remember, it's Mystic Falls. Nothing bad ever happens here, right?
And as always, you can find me on Twitter, Tumblr, TikTok, and Blue Sky at Faye Riviera. You could also follow the show on Twitter at IER Podcast. And if you would like to help us reach the next chapter of our story, please consider leaving us a review or rating us on the podcatcher of your choice, telling all of your friends and family about us. And even better, if you have room in your wallets, please consider donating to our Patreon, our Ko-Fi page, or just the support the show link below. And now let's close out this week's Dracula Weekly.
Mina Mary's Journal, 3rd August. Another week gone, and no news from Jonathan. Not even to Mr. Hawkins, from whom I have heard. Oh, I do hope he is not ill. He surely would have written. I look at the last letter of his, but somehow it does not satisfy me. It does not read like him, and yet it is his writing, there is no mistake of that. Lucy has not walked much in her sleep the last week, but there is an odd concentration about her which I do not understand. Even in her sleep she seems to be watching me. She tries the door, and finding it locked, goes about the room searching for the key.